Hello, when you stumbled across my portion of the internet. Well, it's not really mine, I'm just renting it from Charlie Sheen's Twitter. Now, last week we looked at an episode of Family Guy that dealt with a controversial issue. We found that they both failed to make an argument for their stance on the controversial issue, and also failed to be funny. Today we will look at another Family Guy episode that, again, takes a controversial issue and tries to argue the writer's point of view through comedy. And they fare terribly. Once again, they do not make a very good argument for their point. In fact, they make less of an argument for their point than in the previous episode. The argument is not as cohesive as even the last one, and it doesn't use that much satire to break down the other side of the argument. The episode we're looking at today is a Season 9 episode called Not All Dogs Go to Heaven. Now, the plot of this episode is essentially that Meg discovers Faith because she was bedridden with the mumps, which she contracted at a Star Trek convention. And she is left with TV, and there's only one channel that TV gets, and that channel is the religion channel, and she sees Kirk Cameron and his TV show, and discovers Faith. Through this, and her trying to convert everyone around her, we discover that Brian the dog is an atheist. This makes everyone hate him, because he's an atheist, and in the Family Guy world, they are hated. They were trying to make a point here about intolerance towards atheists, and I don't generally see that a lot around where I am, and so maybe it's a problem somewhere else, but for me, it just kind of didn't strike a chord or provide a lot of comedy. The whole, everybody going there's even a poster that says Brian is worse than Hitler, and it's just kind of hackneyed and just not funny, and just so over-the-top preaching to the audience. And it just, for me at least, it didn't work. Now, I will cut the writer some slack there, because maybe in other parts of society, intolerance and towards atheists is a problem. I will grant that of the writers. I'll give them a little bit of leniency there. But the rest of the episode, there's no excuse. There are so many things wrong with the A-plot of this episode. We're going to get into them. First of all, I have to say that, just like last episode, the B-plot of this episode saves it from being terrible. Even more so than the last episode. This episode, the B-plot of the episode is Stewie. They go to the Star Trek convention, and a bunch of people asked the Star Trek The Next Generation cast a whole bunch of non-Star Trek related questions, which is a great and really funny gag. And Stewie's mad that they didn't answer his questions, so he builds a Star Trek transporter and brings all of the Next Generation cast to his house. And that is brilliantly done. They play it that all the Next Generation cast basically act like children. And this makes Stewie increasingly frustrated, because everybody's acting really immature. And he has to, herd them like they're young children, and it is really well done and hilarious. That's really the only thing that saves this episode. The A-plot of the episode is just not funny, and it doesn't argue its point very well. I have here written down, see this piece of paper? I have written down every funny joke in the A-plot, there's like 4 of them, and every argument this episode makes against religion. And there are essentially 3. And they're all, like, ridiculous and barely arguments. Yeah, there are only 4 funny jokes in the A-plot. Most of them had nothing to do with religion. I mean, they had opportunities in this episode, just like they had opportunities in the last episode, to mock the other side, but they didn't take them, which is odd. The last slide, I thought that they could have done a lot with the overprotective parents, the parents protesting the sex ed course, if you remember that from last year, time I vlogged. You know, you could have done a lot with that, because, you know, parents often get really overprotective, especially in this kind of sexual education area. And you could have made fun of that really easy. But you just didn't take it, because you needed more jokeless time. Because you need this episode to be less funny. And it's the same thing here. I mean, half the episode, Meg is just spouting Christian jargon. Which wasn't that funny. Just felt like they just went to their nearest hymnal, opened it, pointed at a line and said, "We should use that." It just was not funny. Just was just like, what? In what universe is that funny? I've been washed in the blood of the Lamb. Jesus is my Savior. If a man hath ears, let him hear. Why is somebody just spouting that off with little to no context funny? My answer would be, obviously, that it's not funny. And the televangelist. Meg comes to faith through a televangelist. Another rich breeding ground for humor that you don't take advantage of. Why? The televangelist talking to Meg is played pretty straight. Why didn't you make fun of that? It's not that hard. Oy. Ugh, man. It's just... And the arguments against the existence of God in this episode are so bad. Just not good. The first one is, quote, "The Hubble Space Telescope has not discovered an old man in a beard with... No, sorry. An old man with a beard in a cloud." Compelling evidence right there. Because the Hubble Space Telescope has not discovered an old man with a beard in a cloud, there is no God. Do I even need to point out how stupid that argument is? I'm moving on. Next one is actually like the best of the 3. Which is not saying much. Again, it's barely an argument. Meg is talking about how she's feeling acceptance and feeling part of something than themselves by coming to faith. And Brian rebuts this brilliantly by saying that these good feelings of acceptance and such are inside of you. And what you call God is inside of you. That's kind of actually an argument. Kind of something that I could see going in an argument. You know, somebody saying, you know, I experienced God. It's like, no, that's just you. You can't really go anywhere with that argument. It's kind of like a he said, she said kind of argument that really is just an impasse. But it is an argument. And the last one, which is so stupid if you consider the arc of the episode, is that Brian essentially says to Meg, well, you know what? You're ugly and unloved, and because of that, there is no God. Now, on face value, this is stupid. And a really stupid argument. When you look deeper, you see that it's even stupider. Especially because Meg is converted right away. Meg is just like, yes, there is no God because I am ugly. This especially makes no sense when you consider that the reason she came to faith in the first place, the beginning of the episode, was because she was feeling unloved and ugly. They make a point of this. She is feeling unloved and ugly, so she turns to faith. She turns away from faith. Why? Because Brian Jesse's ugly and unloved. Isn't that make sense? Oh, this is so bad. Family Guy, just don't try. You're obviously not good with this religious satire thing. Just watch some George Carlin and, like, learn, or just watch George Carlin and be like, oh, I can't do that. Let's go on to making funny Stewie plots. Ugh, this is not... Oh. Anyway, next time I think I might do some rants on Meatloaf songs. I may come back to Family Guy at some point. Anyway, goodbye, Internet!